Hello, welcome to Choco Millionaire. I've missed you guys and I know you've missed me. I promise you that I'll be coming your way with a live interview. Today, I have some experts in the building. Hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
Good, good,
Hi,
good.
everybody.
Yeah, you're welcome to Choco Millionaire. And this is the first time I'm actually having these experts on here. And also the first time I'm interviewing an immigration lawyer on this platform. I'm trusting that many questions that you have will get answered here today. And make the most of it. Grab a pen and a book and take notes as much as you can. So, ladies, before we start, my name is Choco. I'd like you to just introduce yourself to my audience here.
For sure. Hi, everyone. I am Alexa. I'm head of student success here at Halp. You've probably seen Matthew, our CEO, on some of Chorcor's live videos previously, but I'm excited to be here today talking to all of you. If anyone works with Halp already, I manage our amazing expert coaching team and work directly with our software developers to build the fabulous product you guys get to use every day. And I also get to work with Erica, who can introduce herself, who's one of our amazing expert immigration lawyer partners. So super excited to be here today and answer some questions about the new IRCC changes and help in general.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Alessa, welcome. And Erica, if you can also tell us a little bit about yourself.
for sure. So, my name is Erica, and I am a Canadian immigration lawyer. I am based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. But the beauty of immigration is that I get to work with people from all over the world who want to travel to really anywhere inside Canada. So I'm not limited to just Ontario, which is great. I really deal with a wide range of different immigration applications. I work, with people who have, some simple, complicated cases. I've seen almost everything. But one thing, is that I think we can all agree that right now, with all of the changes, I've just really been, honored to be able to help people navigate the somewhat complex, immigration landscape that we're dealing with right now. But most importantly, I'm really excited to be here and speaking with you all. And thank you for having me.
We are excited to also have you here, Erica. Thanks for sharing your time with us. Unless I know you introduce yourself and you talk a little bit about what you do. For those who are not familiar with your outfit and what you guys do, do you mind just telling us a little bit about what you guys do and the kind of people you serve?
Of course. So, Halp, which is my company, provides end to end support for international students applying to universities and colleges in Canada. So, whether you're a student who's in your home country or you're already in Canada studying a program or working, we are here to help you. Our expert coaches consult with and support our students, just like yourselves, to help you guys achieve your study abroad and career goals. So, what makes us a little bit different is we work backwards from your end goal, what you want to do in your career, or how you want your life to look in 10 years. And our coaches provide institution and program recommendations that will put you on a path to achieve your goals. We then help you build and submit your applications on your behalf. We help you secure an LOA, make all those payments once that time arrives. And then we also provide all of our students with access to our great immigration partners like Erica to support on the visa process. Once you get your approval, our coach then will help guide you through setup support and making sure that if you're not already in Canada, you land in Canada successfully. Or if you're already here, if you have any transitions that you need to make, we'll support there. All of this happens through WhatsApp messaging, calling, and Halp's web application. All of our coaches have huge experience in the international student industry and the education industry as a whole. Quite a few of them were actually international students themselves and now are permanent residents of Canada. And the best thing is that students get all of this support for free. So we are here to help with the entire process and excited to be working with even more students.
All right. I'm excited to hear that all of this is for free. So if today's your first time watching, Halp provides a wide array of services, and she's talked about them. And good news is that you do not have to pay to enjoy or to unlock all these benefits or services that they provide for you. Let's talk about Canada, which is a reason.
Uh-oh.
Let's talk about Canada, which is why we are here today. Is Canada still an attractive place to study? Well, I've talked to a number of people, including national students and newcomers here, and for a lot of people, it's like a whirlwind. People don't know what's going on. A lot of changes here and there. If you were to describe Canada in a word or a phrase, Alessa, let me start off with you. How will you describe the current atmosphere of immigration changes here and there?
I would say optimistic, honestly. I've been on a lot of webinars today. I have a lot more to kind of go through, and although a lot of these changes can feel very chaotic and have like negative connotations or feedback from them, in the end, these changes are actually going to make the Canadian study permit pathway and Canadian immigration in general a lot stronger. And for the people that have the right intentions going into it and actually want to use this study pathway system to improve their lives, whether it's to stay in Canada or go back home after, those are the people that are going to be successful, and the pathway and the system will actually be much stronger and much better for those people. So I'm optimistic, although it's a little chaotic right now, the changes will actually have really, really good results, in my opinion.
All right, so I missed the chaos. There is still some ray of hope there.
Yes.
Things that, unless are things that is going to make the entire process stronger, and then we'll be able to attract the best of talents to come into Canada. Erica, you're an immigration lawyer. You've gone through a ton of cases. You work with people who have been refused visas or have been successful. You've seen it all. With the changes we've seen in the last few months, how will you describe this?
No, I think I really like how Alexa put it, and I couldn't agree more. I think that, putting myself in the shoes of my clients for a second here, I think it's scary. There's a lot of changes happening. They're happening very quickly. There's a lot of big words, that are being thrown out there, and all of these upcoming changes. And it can be very confusing at times too, because we have these announcements that come, that talk about upcoming changes, but they often leave a lot of question marks more than answers. And so I think, that's where professionals can come in to sort of, fill in those gaps and provide some information. But I think that when it comes to changes, the most important thing is to take a step back and to look at the big picture and to really look at the patterns and to understand that IRCC is not making these changes, overnight just without thought. There's a lot of careful attention to detail, to patterns, to, identifying problems and then creating solutions. And so these changes are really meant to be just that, solutions. And so I think that, yes, from if you do look at it, it seems scary. There's caps, there's changes to eligibility. It might seem like it's becoming more difficult to come to Canada and stay in Canada. But I actually think that it's, in a way, making it easier because, we're no longer giving this sense of comfort where it's come to Canada and you can stay, no problem. It's going to be an easy journey. And that hasn't been the case for a lot of people. So with these changes, the hope is that once you get here, you can stay here if that's your goal, and you can be able to succeed and, better yourself and your own credentials, but also the country, Canada, and contribute.
Great. If today is your first time watching, welcome to Choco Millionaire. You were watching a live interview between myself, Choco, and two of the best in the industry. Alessa is with Halp. She manages most of the coaches and the people who work at Halp, making sure that you have a seamless process transitioning to Canada as an international student. And Erica Hemmon is an immigration lawyer based in Toronto, and she's connected with us today, giving you perspective or insight into some of the changes happening with our immigration programs and how you can also maximize the opportunities there. Drop your questions. I will be reading some of your questions here. Keep them brief and direct. Just keep the questions coming and I'll read some of them out to you. Now, Alessa is optimistic about Canada's immigration future. She thinks we will attract the best. Bright Nudoko thinks that these changes are making his head. Let me read that. These changes are very chaotic and makes my head spin. It's not fun at all. Canada, I know, Bright, that is how you feel. You can also express your concerns and let me know what you think. What are the challenges confront you right now regarding your journey to Canada? What stage are you at, and what difficulties are you facing at the moment? Now, I'd like to go to the next question about the attractiveness of Canada and how international students can make the most of it. I was reading the news in the last few days, and colleges Ontario, 24 colleges in Ontario have actually literally called the government out, describing the changes to the postgraduate work permit program as an elitist run, just because there are many people who are studying courses that may not be in the high in demand sectors in Canada when it comes to job prospects and all of that, but these students are already here and they're studying, right? So with all this confusion, if I am a new international student and I'm looking to come into Canada now, or I'm already in the process, how do I maximize the value of my degree when I come to Canada? How will Halp be able to help me to make sure that I'm selecting the right courses or the right programs, knowing that the industries I'm going to be going into are industries that are top ranked in Canada? Alessa, this one to you.
Yes, I think that is a great question. And a lot of the kind of immigration specific pieces, I will definitely throw over to Erica, as she is an immigration lawyer and I am not. But what I do want to say is there are a lot of changes that are going on. I know that a lot of these big changes are affecting PGWP, or the postgraduate work permit eligibility. And really the people that are going to get the hit the hardest are people studying undergrad diploma and certificates, as well as postgrad diploma and certificates at colleges. I think a big point to be made here is that as of right now, any bachelor's, master's, or PhD programs at a university, the PGWP eligibility is not getting impacted. So I think it's really important for people to stay open-minded and kind of listen to what more information will be coming down the pipeline. Because right now, I would definitely say that if I put myself, like Erica said, in the shoes of Halp students, a lot of this seems like, okay, it seems like I'm going to come to Canada, study for however long my program is, and now I have no opportunity to stay and work or work in what I've studied in Canada. I think people should keep an open mind about that. As kind of more information comes out, we can always discuss it further. But in terms of what does this mean for my future if I'm in a program currently? Like I said, it's a little bit unclear. However, if you are a student studying a bachelor's or master's or PhD at a university, you won't be impacted by your postgraduate work permit won't be impacted. The second part of your question, Torcor had to deal with these new announcements that have been made, are talking about how postgraduate work permits will be available for students studying in colleges. However, they're going to have to match labor shortages. Another piece here is the provincial and federal governments are going to work together to kind of build out a list of those labor shortages and what programs match to those labor shortages. However, I've already been on webinars and meetings all day with Halp's direct partners, and a lot of our partner universities specifically have already told us that most of their programs will fall into the labor shortages category. So although it seems crazy, it seems very chaotic, like Bright said, there's a lot more information coming down the pipeline. And if you kind of step back and see what the actual changes are, you'll realize that a lot of students are impacted, but your Halp coach, who works with Erica, who works with our other immigration lawyers, and who has very close ties to the IRCC and information from the IRCC, will help you get on a path that if your end goal is to get a postgraduate work permit and work in Canada for a little bit, or even try and go through that PR route, your Halp coach will recommend the best programs at our university and college partners that will help you get there. So like I said at the beginning, the way we kind of think about it is we want to know what our students' goals are, end goals for their career, for their life, so that we can work backwards with them and recommend programs and institutions that will put them on the best path of success to get there.
Sounds amazing, Alessa. So Halp will be working with you as an applicant to figure out what your goals are, and then also recommend the best programs to you. And most of their programs are in those industries that Canada has as high in-demand industries. Mm-hmm. So you should be confident that when you connect with Halp, they will be working for your interests when it comes to your future goals here in Canada. Talking about the changes to the immigration program, it's quite a lot. Sometimes people lose track of which changes to follow and which one is the latest one and whatever. Now, schools have been in touch with the IRCC. My understanding is that most of the colleges and universities have been contacted by IRCC in recent time, just kind of updating them on the changes and which one they should get their students aware of and all of that. Erica, if you can just pick some of the top changes that have been made, can we just walk through some of them so that students can know that these ones are probably the most significant ones that we should keep an eye on?
For sure. I think, well, just to start, it is a little difficult, to walk through everything right now because we are missing a lot of information. And so, we have an overview, but my number one piece of advice I would say, to prospective students or students inside Canada is really stay tuned and keep an eye out for updates as they come in, but also be very wary of which sources you are relying on because that is crucial. And, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of confusion with these changes, and there's a lot of false information out there, unfortunately. People that are jumping to conclusions really quickly, but they're missing the facts and they're missing the confirmation from the government. So, and oftentimes go to the source itself, go to IRCC's website, go check the updates, check the announcements, look at the language that is used. And, that can be really, really helpful. But I think, in terms of the biggest changes, obviously PGWP eligibility is a huge change. And it's so important because the study permit pathway, for many people is really a pathway to permanent residency eventually, coming into Canada. And the PGWP, the post-graduation work permit program, is designed to allow you to stay in Canada after you complete your studies and start working. And work experience is crucial for becoming a permanent resident. And the reason for this is because, before I get in, I just want to say one thing. When it comes to permanent residency, there are several paths to becoming a PR. So it would be impossible for me to cover all of them. So I'll start with the most common, which is express entry. And that's the most popular path to becoming a PR, a permanent resident. And as part of the express entry program, it's a scoring system. And one of the factors that we're looking at when it comes to eligibility and also your score is Canadian work experience. So getting that 1 year of Canadian work experience can really be the make it or break it factor to becoming a permanent resident. So that's where, the study to PR pathway can really come in, bridging the gap and, having that work element in the middle. And so when we're talking about the eligibility changes, the post-graduation work permit eligibility, what we do know so far is there's two big factors where we're looking at level of study. So, the level, the education level that, you are going into and you are pursuing in Canada, but also the field of study is going to come into place. We don't know yet which fields are going to be selected. We know that it is going to be targeting labor shortages. So we can, we can make a good guess, and we can assume that it's going to be areas like healthcare, tech, construction, trades, areas that, historically have been focused on when, the government has been making policy changes. And what I like to tell clients as well is that you can actually look at the express entry system and you can look at the category based draws that were created within this system. And that is a very, good indication of what Canada views to be priority, labor shortage sectors that are targeted by, temporary policies that are implemented. Another really big factor is language. Language is huge when it comes to becoming, a permanent resident. And now they're actually implementing a language requirement into the eligibility requirements for getting a post-graduation work permit. And I think that for a lot of people that I spoke with, this was a very jarring change. It seemed very scary, like it's going to, potentially be a factor that a lot of students are going to be afraid of. But I actually looked at it in a slightly different view, and I think it's a wonderful change. And the reason for that is because I see so many people who come to Canada, who finish their program, who start working, and then they go and take a language test, which is so important for express entry, and they just can't get the results that they need. And a lot of people don't know how important language is to determining your score for express entry. And so if you can start early as even before you come to Canada, when you're looking into programs, preparing, to come to Canada, when you're in Canada and you're studying, find time to work on your language skills. Because now, obviously, it's very important for getting that work permit. But this is just setting you up for success in the future. It's not work that you're going to be doing or an exam where you're going to have to write it and then forget everything, 10 minutes after you write the exam. These are skills that are very important to have. And Canadian immigration system, countless times, with different programs, cannot reiterate the importance of enough of, language. And obviously that's English, but French as well. If you know French, it's a very, very important skill to have to becoming a Canadian, permanent resident at the moment.
Erica, I'm happy you touched on the language bit. Yesterday, I was talking to an international student. She will be finishing in April next year, but she's already preparing for her language test. And I think it's important to stress that not only is this a new requirement, but it could be critical to the transition of an international student to getting to work beyond completing school. Because if you don't have your language test results ready, it doesn't make it easy for you to get your postgraduate work permit. Now, previously, you did not need a language test to actually get your postgraduate work permit. This is new, and it is in effect. So you have to really start preparing. You don't want to wait till the last minute. It could be difficult to even find a test appointment when it comes to getting that. I remember when I was doing mine some time back, I waited to the last minute and I thought I could just register and get an appointment for maybe a test date in a week or two. I couldn't. And I was almost running out of my papers. So if you're watching this video right now, please schedule time on your calendar. Make sure you block time. Make sure you book an appointment to take your test. Decide on which one you want to take. Is it a SOLPIP? Is it the IELTS? Is it the French ones? Just make sure you're putting all of this on your calendar. You do not want to wait last minute. Now, it sounds to me that IRCC is going to be enforcing the rules a little bit more now. If you are in breach of immigration conditions, it could come in negative way. So you don't want to run out of time where you have no status in Canada because you failed to plan to take your language test. Please put this on your calendar. An immigration lawyer right here, Erica, is telling you to plan for that. And I'm emphasizing that again. Please block time on your calendar and make sure you're planning to take your language test. There are different eligibility requirements based on your level of study. If you are at the university level, bachelor's, master's, and PhD, the requirement is a little bit higher. You need to get a score of 7, band 7. And then if you are at a college level, your band is 5, band 5. So please put this on your calendar and plan to write your language test possibly before you graduate from school. Erica, you touched on some important points there that I'd like to come back to, if you don't mind. So you said one of the ways you can get your permanent residency is through the Express Entry program, which is becoming a little bit more popular now because of the category-based draws and all of that. You also mentioned the Canadian work experience of 1 year. And I think that is important because some students may not have a previous work experience or foreign work experience before coming to Canada. So when you study in Canada and you graduate, the work experience you acquire on a valid work permit helps you to acquire or to build that Canadian work experience, which you can in turn use to maximize your points in the Express Entry pool. Now, for those who are going into their studies now, you want to be really careful about it. I think we need to draw this. So if you plan on taking the Express Entry route through the Canadian Express, you need a 1 year work experience. If you're going to do a 1 year program, which doesn't have a pathway to a 3 years postgraduate work permit, this could significantly impact you, because I don't see how a 1 year postgraduate work permit will allow anybody to get a 1 year work experience and still maintain a status in immigration. So if you are considering your programs to study, just make sure you're choosing programs and courses that gives you the maximum postgraduate work permit eligibility, that gives you more time to be able to get your Canadian experience. But Erica, I don't know if you want to add to that. I just thought I should just emphasize that.
No, that is so important. And I think exactly as you said, that it's especially unfortunately with, and going back to these changes, they're really to address the current labor market and the fact that, for a lot of students who are taking programs that are leading to careers that are not necessarily in areas that have a labor shortage, it's very, very hard to find a job after graduating. Unfortunately, I went through it. All of my peers went through it. It's a really scary experience. And so exactly when you have that 1 year to get 1 year of work experience, it's near impossible for most people. But I think that something else that is really important too is that the 1 year, that's just the minimum, right? You can get points for 2 years, for 3 years. And for a lot of people, you might need that, because when we're looking at the score, it's looking at several factors, and work experience is just one of them. And you actually touched on a very good point as well, that when it comes to work experience, it sort of comes into play in two ways. The first is that, we have eligibility, and the second is we have score. So eligibility means that to actually qualify to apply for permanent residency under the Express Entry system, you have to fall under one of the classes. And there's 3 classes, one for skilled trades, one for federal skilled workers, so that's looking at foreign work experience, and then one for Canadian experience class. Or it's called the Canadian Experience class. And so as the name sounds, Canadian Experience is based off of a minimum of 1 year of Canadian work experience. And then the federal skilled worker is based off of a minimum of 1 year of foreign work experience. There are some other, details that you have to sort of consider when it comes to that work experience to make sure it qualifies, but that's a very broad, overview. And beyond that, then we also look at the score. And so the more experience you have, the higher your score, but it all gets balanced out. And so we're looking at age, we're looking at language, we're looking at work experience, level of education, whether you have a spouse, what their credentials look like. And so it's this really interesting balancing act. And so for one person, 1 year of Canadian work experience might be enough. For somebody else, it might not. And for one person, language might be their, sore spot where they really have to work on getting those language test results higher. And so they might need time to do that. So having a longer post-graduation work permit gives you time to then prepare for that test, retake the test if you need to, and make sure that you can get your score to where it needs to be for you to be within that range of likely, that you're going to be likely to be selected to apply for permanent residency.
Thank you, Erica, for adding a lot more meat on the top of there. You also mentioned that there is a need for students to be a little bit more they have to stay on top of issues and development, because there is a whole bunch of changes happening now. You cannot just be listening to just anything out there. You have to stay on top. Probably go to the website, the official source, to actually get information, because you can easily be confused or misled by the wrong information out there. If you're watching this, just make sure you are staying on top. If you already live in Canada, I made a mistake when I was here. I wasn't on top. I was just busy working and doing the overtimes. And when times came calling, and I was almost in trouble, running out of my immigration status there. We can't emphasize this enough. Make time. Make sure you are following the right channels. Make sure you are visiting the IRCC website. Make sure you are scheduling an appointment with the certified immigration consultant, who are in good standing, of course, and immigration lawyers and all of that. Talk to experts. Talk to the folks at Halp. Find out what your options are. If you're already in Canada right now, I know some of you are international students. You've done your first year programs. You don't know what next. You don't know what to do. You're confused. You don't know what to do. Alessa will be talking a little bit more about that. But before I go to Alessa, I want to just spend a bit more time with Erica. So one more area that potentially could see some changes is also the spouses of international students or graduates when it comes to maintaining or acquiring their work permit. So if I am an international student and I graduated my program and I am applying or eligible for my postgraduate work permit, I need to write a language test together. But what about my spouse? Do they also automatically get the open work permits because I got it and I'm eligible, or they have to demonstrate that they are also in certain industries before getting it? There was a talk around that. They are going to be narrowing down on certain industries for spouses. Is that an area you want to talk about a bit?
For sure. I think it's definitely a very big change. And, Canada is the Canadian immigration program, it's very family oriented. There's an understanding that it's incredibly important. This isn't, it's not just your journey. It's the journey that you want to take with your family. And so that's a very important consideration to keep in mind. Again, I hate, going back to uncertainties, but, there's talk of changes. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we have a general idea that, exactly as you said, it looks like it's going to be focusing in on specific types of workers and types of fields, the fields that the worker is going to be involved in. And when I say the worker, I want to just clarify here that the spouse here, their application is completely dependent on the primary applicant, which is their spouse who's applying for a post-graduation work permit. And so the focus is on the post-graduation work permit holder and what they're doing with their work permit, which is then going to influence eligibility for their spouse. And so that's, very important to sort of keep in mind. Obviously, as I said before, stay on top of any developments and updates. It's really hard to make decisions when you don't have all of the information in front of you. So I'm seeing that a lot now, where I'm seeing a lot of people feeling very rushed, where they, they're wanting to apply right now, or they're wanting to secure, their spot just before the changes come. And there's a lot of panic. And I think that, something that was touched on earlier is that a lot of these changes seem very scary, but oftentimes it might not be as scary as we think. It could be open to a lot more people, than we're expecting. We obviously don't know 100%, but it might not be as bad, as it's coming across. So I think that's something to sort of keep in the back of your minds. But again, like talking about the target, labor shortage areas, we have a general understanding of what Canada views to be these areas. And so we can keep that in mind: healthcare, tech, construction, and more. Those are just a few, big ones. And another really big factor too is that there is an emphasis being placed on the type of workers. So we're looking at professionals, we're looking at, managerial positions. And so one way of determining whether the PGWP holder will fall into those positions is looking at the NOC codes. And so NOC codes are divided into what's called tiers. And so the higher your tier, the more, managerial you are, the more your occupation is viewed as a profession. And so that is something to keep in mind as well. But I've also just would like to say that I have been hearing some rumors spiraling around where people are saying that it looks like, anybody who has a post-graduation work permit and they have a knock tier 2 or 3, that their spouse is automatically not eligible. And I just want to say that that is not true. That, it's very, very clear that if that individual is working in an area that is viewed to be that it has a labor shortage, that doesn't matter what level, what tier, the spouse is still going to be eligible. So I just wanted to clarify that one point.
Thank you for the clarification. I will be coming back to you to talk about the different types of cases you deal with as an immigration lawyer. And then, if possible, let's also talk a bit about the cap. We have a cap every year on how many students we are bringing into the country. We just had an additional 10% announcement recently that we're going to lower the numbers by 10%. I'll come back to that. At what point will students be able to tell that Canada has already reached their target for the year, and so I shouldn't be putting in my application to just get a refusal? If you can just think around those questions, then I'll come back to you on that. And I'd like us to also talk a bit more about the spouses for international students who previously came under the old policy before these changes in the year. And these students are probably at the stage where their visas and their work permits are expiring and they want to renew because their primary dependents are going in for an extension of their visas, student visas and stuff like that. Would they still be eligible or not? If you can think about that, Erica, I'll come back to you on that. Alessa, Erica talk about age and how age could be a big factor when it comes to getting your permanent residence. The younger you are, you could get some more additional points in the express entry pool. With you working with international students, how big is age a factor, especially in the midst of all these changes, when it comes to helping you create a solid profile to actually get your student visas? How big is that a factor?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and one that we get very, very often from our students. So I will say age is a major factor, and a lot of the times where it plays in is actually with study gaps as well. So those are kind of two attributes or variables that like play off of each other. It is kind of true. The younger you are, kind of the more attractive your profile is to schools, but also to the IRCC. On the flip side, they do kind of contradict themselves because they also want you to have experience, and specifically with master's programs, especially master's programs that fall into professions like business and tech and even engineering. A lot of the times, a requirement to apply for that master's program is work experience. You can't get work experience if you're 21 applying for a master's program when you just graduated from your bachelor's program. So the information does contradict itself a little bit. What we kind of operate under is if your study gap is more than 5 years, it's going to be very difficult to find you an education path that matches your goals, but also matches what a university or college and the IRCC are looking for. So in terms of study gap, generally what we kind of operate under is the lower the study gap, the better. But 5 years is a little bit of Halp's maximum. And again, the reason that being is your coach is not sitting there talking to you, hoping to just push you to whatever you want. We want to understand your goals. We want to understand why you want to come to Canada. Is it to create better career opportunities for yourself back home? Is it to work 3 years in Canada and then maybe go through that express entry pathway for PR? Like, it really depends what the student is looking for. And that end career goal will map back to what we kind of recommend as a program. So study gaps in general, going back to this program, a lot of universities and colleges have now seen the changes that the IRCC is making, and they've actually lowered the study gaps that they will accept. So that is why Halp's kind of study gap limit is 5 years. In terms of age, that gets a little bit more confusing because you do have people that out of high school maybe couldn't afford to go to university right away. So they worked for 5 years, then did their bachelor's degree. now they've graduated and they're 30 years old and want to do a master's. So in that case, again, it really depends on the student's education pathway and what they are looking to achieve. But that's something that we can work with students to explain to the university, to work with Erica and explain it to the IRCC. Like, this student, yes, is older, but they're actually in the same section of their journey as a younger student would be. So all of that being said, you kind of have to think about study gap and age being correlated to each other. However, really what is the most important thing is, do your goals and the education pathway that Halp is mapping out for you make sense to the IRCC and to the universities that you're applying to? And if it does, and you're 30 years old and you just finished your bachelor's degree and now you want to do a master's in Canada, but you're 30, a lot of the times, if the education pathway makes sense, it will work, and you can have a successful study permit approval. Again, that was just an example. I'm not saying that if you're older, if you're younger, it's not going to work. But really what it all links back to is, does your education pathway map back to what makes sense in the eyes of the universities and colleges and the IRCC?
Great. We've talked about Halp's viewpoint or position on study gap and age. If somebody's watching this video right now, or maybe in the future, and they want to go the Halp way instead of using an agent and all of that, I want you to just give the new person watching this video an overview of what it takes to be a successful applicant with Halp, for Halp to be able to take you through that process on that journey to until you transition into Canada as an international student. What does it look like? Where does it start from? What do I need to do? Can you just run us through?
For sure, of course. So first, I'll talk kind of about like the eligibility of working with Halp, and where that really starts is, I want everyone to know that our company is very keen, and we believe on transparency. So if you're not necessarily meeting our eligibility requirements, or we don't think you're going to meet IRCC requirements, we'll be very transparent with you. And the reason that we do this is because the financial implications of studying abroad doesn't start when you land in Canada. It costs money to apply for your study permit. It costs money to apply for university applications. And we know that money is very important, and a lot of students save up for a very long time to be able to study abroad. So the first thing I will say is that if you're watching this later on in the future, and maybe you're hearing some of the things that we require and you think, I'm not eligible, it's not because we don't want to help you. It's because we want to help you make the best decision for yourself. And one thing that we will never do is lead you on a path that we know might not lead to success. So just wanted to put that in there. In terms of eligibility, honestly, the biggest piece about studying abroad and eligibility is the financial piece. And kind of sucks that that's the first thing that you have to talk about, but it is very important. It does cost a lot of money as an international student to study in Canada when you're thinking about tuition and living expenses. And on top of that, the IRCC also has very strict financial kind of regulations that students have to meet. So a big piece that you'll see as a student signing up for Halp, when you sign up and you kind of start using our platform, we have you fill out a little profile so that we can get to know you. And you'll notice there's a lot of questions about financial kind of preparedness on there. And it's not meant to scare students. It's not meant to kind of like deter people from studying abroad. It's really meant as like an educational tool to say, hey, we don't want you to spend any money on this process unless you truly can afford it. And so we're kind of going to give you some scary numbers, but break them down for you so you can understand what that means. So a great example there is recently with IRCC changes over this year, they increased the minimum requirement for living expenses. So now that's $20,685 or $35 that you have to show in living expenses. On top of that, if you're studying a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in Canada, your tuition's also going to cost around another $20,000 at minimum. So therefore, if you're applying for Halp and you're signing up for Halp and you're seeing these big numbers, like you need to be able to afford 40,000 Canadian dollars, it's not meant to deter you. It's meant to educate you and make sure that you understand the kind of financial commitment that you're getting into when studying abroad. So that's the fine. Yes.
Just to cut in there, just to be clear, these are official fees going to the respective institutions, like, for example, the 20,000 for a master's or other programs there. That is a tuition, not a payment to Halp, correct?
Yes. Good. So that is a tuition. Halp will not take any of your money. We are a completely free service. Any kind of funds we talk about are either going straight to the institution or straight to the IRCC for the visa application, but we do not charge anything for our services.
Great.
Thank you for jumping in there, Chorkor.
You're welcome. And the same goes with the living expenses for $20,635. That is your personal living expenses, your accommodation, your groceries, your bills in Canada. That has nothing to do with Halp.
That has nothing to do with Halp, and that is not even our requirement. That is a requirement made by the Canadian government.
Sorry for the interruption. You can carry on.
Yes, no, of course. I'm glad that we could clarify that. So anyway, going back to kind of the Halp eligibility piece and what types of students we work with. So there will be a financial piece discussion. But the other thing that I want to make super clear is when it comes to study gap and age, like I said, 5 years is kind of where we hit our limit in study gaps. Again, we do look at students on a case-by-case basis. So if you're ever confused or you think that you might meet some requirements, you can always reach out to us and kind of ask. But honestly, in terms of everything else, if you are a student who has like decent grades, so anything kind of like 60% average or above, we can find, again, an education pathway that will fit what your past education history looks like. The one other piece I will say is if you are from a country that is English is not your national language or like the second national language, and you weren't educated in English, you will be required to take an English proficiency test. Again, that's not our requirement. We have to follow the requirements of the institutions and the IRCC. So if English is not your first and or second language, or you weren't educated in English, you will have to take an English proficiency test. So as a student wanting to learn more, maybe wanting to sign up for Halp and talk to our team, what you'll really have to think about is how much realistically can you afford, and are you willing to kind of contribute financially to your education? The second piece is just think about your education history. What did you study in university or high school? What are your goals for coming to Canada, and how does that map back to your education in your home country? And then finally, if English isn't your first or second language, take an English proficiency test and make sure you're kind of hitting some of those minimum requirements that Chorkor talked about earlier. For IELTS, most universities and colleges require a 6.0 or a 6.5. So that's the IELTS test. You'll require those bands for there. But also, if you don't know, just sign up for Halp, complete your profile, and someone from our team will reach out and kind of let you know what the next steps are.
Great. The minimum academic requirements here, different students may be coming in for different reasons or different levels of studies. If I am from a high school, or I'm a high school graduate and I'm coming in to study at a bachelor's level, or I want to go to college, what will be the minimum requirements? If I want to go to my master's, would I need a 4 years bachelor's? What if I have a 2-year diploma and I want to go into a master's? There are a lot of folks from Africa who may not have a bachelor's of 4 years. Will it still be possible for them to go into other areas, say do a master's? If you can just talk about the minimum requirements for the different levels, I'll appreciate that as well.
Of course. And we work with lots of students from Africa. So we know a lot about the WAEC and all of the examinations. And our coaches are very well trained in kind of how to convert your grades, whether it's a higher division, a first class division, a lower division, all of those things. We know how to kind of convert them and compare them. The way you can kind of think about it is every single institution will have different requirements in terms of grades. A lot of our students who maybe didn't have the best grades in high school who want to come abroad, they do worry about that. And what's great is our partners come from a wide range of institutions who have a wide selection of kind of their minimum requirements. What we generally say is if you want options that you should really be looking at kind of like in Canadian terms is like a 60% or like a 2.5 to 3.0 out of 4 GPA. That's kind of how you can think about it. But again, if you don't know, sign up. Our coaches will help you. And what I'm saying is it's not that we won't accept less, but if you want options, that you kind of have to be working in that range that I just spoke about. It's very different for kind of undergrad and postgrad. Generally with postgraduate programs, whether it's diplomas and certificates or masters, the minimum requirements there are usually going to be higher, specifically with grades and specifically with masters. So as a student who might be doing their bachelor's degree right now, it does matter. Your grades do matter if you want to do a master's. It is important to keep kind of an average or an above average of around like 70% or a lower division we will accept. But again, the higher grades, the more options you're going to have available to you because you're not as restricted. The second piece of your question was about students who might want to do a master's specifically because of the PGWP eligibility that kind of comes with doing a master's program and who can apply for those. Most of the time, the majority of the institutions in Canada that offer master's programs do require a 4-year bachelor degree. Now, I do know that with a lot of the African university systems, they're 3-year bachelor's degrees. So you can do something called a top up, which a lot of our students do. And a lot of the times you can add on your 1 extra year of a diploma or your top up degree, and schools will identify that is a 4-year bachelor's degree and you can apply for a master's. If you don't know, lots of schools do degree granting evaluations. So a lot of our partners will have that as part of their application. The student either has to have done a WES evaluation or a degree evaluation. Some of our partners, though, if the student hasn't done it, they have their own degree evaluation system that will do it for them. But if you don't know whether you qualify for a master's, again, sign up for Halp. Our coaches will let you know. The one thing I will say is just be open-minded because a lot of the times, like Erica said earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And we do have students that come to us that unfortunately have been told that they are eligible for certain programs that they might not be. So when you are communicating with our coaches, just be open-minded because they do have your best interests in mind when they're kind of recommending programs and institutions.
All right, Alyssa, thank you so much for touching on the requirements there. And how long does it take if somebody signs up? How long does it take to get them in the pipeline and then get them to start doing something with Halp? How long does it take to get it?
I'm so happy you asked that. So when you sign up for Halp and you complete your profile, a member of our team will reach out pretty much instantly, but at maximum like 6 hours after you have signed up, you'll actually get a phone call from our team. If you want to move faster, upload your transcript and passport and we can move you through much quicker. But most of our students who are signing up right now, who are meeting our kind of eligibility requirements and who we deem are highly qualified students are getting matched with their coach, honestly, within 24 to 48 hours of signing up with Halp. So that being said, those are the students that sign up, give us all the information we need and answer our phone call when we call. Obviously, I know a lot of people have things going on and can't always be by the phone or kind of produce their documents right away. But if you want to be matched with a coach within 24 hours and start working on those applications and start getting those recommendations, sign up, complete your profile, upload your passport and transcript, and you should be matched with a coach within kind of a day.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. I will come back to you to talk about some of the programs that students should be looking at. the next intake is just around the corner. The winter intake is around the corner. Some students are looking to make moves into going into school as new students coming from overseas. Some of them are already in Canada and they're looking to take a second program. So if you can just get ready with a list of programs that you recommend that students should take a look at, I'll be happy to chat about that. Let me get back to Erica. When I first heard that Halp is providing a free consultancy service to students to get admission and then onboard them and help them with the transition, including post-graduation supports and all of that, there was one aspect of the whole package that caught my attention, and that has to do with the free immigration services for lawyers to submit a visa application for a student. I was blown away. I couldn't believe it, to be honest. And that brings me to you. Lawyers are not cheap. And I don't think you are cheap, Erica. So what does it mean for you as an immigration lawyer to be involved in stuff like this, helping students to apply for their visa for free, especially when others are charging probably between $2,000 to about maybe $5,000, depending on the nature of your case? What does it mean? How much of a relief is this if a student comes through your pipeline and then you guys are providing this kind of help?
No, I think that's a great question, and it's funny, because as much as I love my job and I love helping, the hardest part of my job is sending an invoice. I absolutely I don't enjoy it, and I always say to people that I truly wish that I could do my job for free. More importantly, I wish that the cost of living was a little bit more affordable in Toronto so I could do my job for free, but that's another story. But no, it's incredible. And I think, going back to the importance of making sure that you are speaking to the right people and people who are qualified to provide the information to you, who have the information to share with you, is so critical. And I find it honestly very sad, when I'm working and I have situations where people are coming to me after the fact and they either, tried to do it themselves, or maybe they worked with somebody who misled them, or, something went wrong. And then they're coming to me and, I'm most of the time I'm able to help, and get them into the direction that they, were intending to go in the first place. But I wish that I could, remove that first part of their story from their journey and just, help them from the start have a really smooth journey with as little bumps as possible. That said, when it comes to immigration, I like to remind people that at the end of the day, I work very hard with all of my clients to prepare an application package that is the absolute best that it can be. Something that, I always put myself in their shoes and say, like, is this something that I would be proud of, submitting? And do I feel, that this is giving them the best chance of success? But then it gets turned over to IRCC and the decision is in their hands. And so, one thing I like to say too is that if you ever speak with somebody and they're guaranteeing you success or they're guaranteeing an outcome, they are not telling you the truth. And so,
right, can you just emphasize that one more time?
Yes, please do. Please emphasize it.
Yes.
No, and I always say that. And I think it's a really nice way to connect with people too, because oftentimes, I'm not here to sugarcoat things. I'm here to tell you how it is, to say, that this is not going to be necessarily an easy journey, but I'm here. I'm going to help you through it. And we're going to do everything together to make sure that you can get there. But if anybody is going into this thinking that there isn't 100% chance of getting an application approved, you unfortunately have been misinformed. And so I think, it's very, very, very important to keep that in mind and just to manage your expectations as well going into it. And also to understand that if you get that approval, it's not easy and it's an incredible, incredible accomplishment. And you should be so proud of yourself and that this is just the start to an incredible journey.
Wow. Itchy ears. I know you are out there and we're hoping to hear something of a guarantee that your visa will be approved. You didn't get that coming from an immigration lawyer. How disappointed you are, but she's telling you the truth. If anybody out there is guaranteeing you a Canadian visa, you're dealing with the wrong people, because even the visa officer cannot guarantee you your visa. They strictly go by the totality of the application before them, and they look at it on merit to determine who is deserving of it. So please do not fall for all those lies out there. I'm guaranteeing you a visa to study in Canada. I'm guaranteeing this. That person giving you those assurances there, they cannot back it up when it matters. All right. Most of the time, your money is just gone. All right. And these are the guys here who are not charging you money, free immigration lawyers and experts who are helping you, provide you with all the coach. And they are telling you they cannot guarantee you a visa. What they can do is to help you put together your own documents, strong application to make sure that you're successful. All right. And if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. You got to give it another shot again. All right. And they're going to be there with you. Connection there. Sorry about that. They're going to be there with you throughout. So please, please, please stick through with them. And I know, Erica, you've seen, you've worked with students, you've seen visa approval rates. We've seen the numbers go down. We've also seen what it takes to put a strong application together, and probably also seen students who have been refused. So you know what the metrics looks like. You probably have also seen students who probably used the wrong people and the reasons for their refusal. Now, there are a lot of people who are watching right now, and they wish they can get a sense of what exactly is the ideal application or a good profile of an application. Do you mind touching down on some of the cases of, if you can just put us through some of them so we know what to look for in a strong application and not a good application, a badly put application? What are the things there?
For sure. No, absolutely. I think, something that I'm very careful with when I'm working with, a prospective student to put together an application is to really do that, to work with them. And so at the end of the day, you know yourself best. This is an opportunity for you to tell your story to the government of Canada and to tell them why you're choosing to come to Canada to pursue this program, how this is connecting to everything you've done so far that has brought you to this point. But most importantly, how is this going to lead you to the future, to your goals? Like it's really about past, present, future, and drawing that connection. And so I'd say the strongest, applications are ones that have very, very detailed, clear explanation letters. And just to clarify, there are many names, for these letters. I've heard them, called motivation letters, study plans, letters of explanation. Just to be clear, there's no, general required document. Like there's no name that IRCC, includes. So actually, there's some visa office instructions that reference it differently. But just so you know, it's a letter. It's a personalized letter that really should come from you. And even when I'm actually submitting an application on behalf of a student, I include 2 letters as part of the package. I include a letter that comes directly from the student telling their own story, explaining the important elements of their application in a very clear, organized way. Headings, they're key. You want to make, the officer's job as easy as possible when they're reviewing your application. Tables of contents, organized packages, headings with letters, whatever you can do. Big font, and then I also include a second letter, which is a letter that is coming from me. It's the representative submission letter. And that letter is going to be a little more legal, in nature. It's going to be more talking about the elements of the application, why this candidate meets the requirements that are, outlined by IRCC, and a clear outline of all of the documents that we have included to help support each element. So I really like to break it down between, what are we showing? So proof of funds is a huge one. I include a very detailed chart, and I would recommend this to everybody. And I know that Halp, will work very closely with students to create this. If you include, let's say, 50 pages of a bank statement and you submit the application as is, the chances of somebody going through and reading all of that and, understanding the numbers, not so likely. So you really want to have everything in one place in a very detailed, organized chart, very clear and, easily accessible as part of your application. Ties to your home country is a huge one as well. So all of the documents that you're including, we all have, I think of ways that I would be able to tie, myself to Canada, and there's like an endless list of documents that I would want to include. And so the more the merrier, when it comes to these documents, but also don't just throw it all in there. Keep it organized, have a table of contents, have a list, tell, why each document is being included, how it helps you make your case. And so I think what I'm trying to emphasize here is just being organized, putting everything together into, a well thought out package. That's going to give you the best chance, of succeeding and making your case to IRCC as part of the application. But there's so many more points I could touch on here. I could go on forever. So I will end here.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are interested in this aspect there because a lot of people don't actually know what to include. What is a good document to include, and which one negatively impacts me or exposes me. So you talking about this, I can tell people, if you guys are enjoying it, please comment. Would you want Erica to continue talking about the different aspects of a strong visa application documentation? Or comment below, drop your comments, keep your questions coming. If you're enjoying this video as well, smash the like button. If this is your first time watching Choco Millionaire, you're watching a live interview with a top immigration lawyer, Erica Herman. She's right here with us all the way in Toronto. And we also got Alessa, who is one of the top educational experts here in Canada with Halp. And they're helping you to make sense of the changes to Canada's immigration program so long as you're a student. And I hope you're making your notes, and then you are putting key timestamps there so that you can come back to this video and then unpack everything there. So Erica, I think the feedback I'm getting here is that you can continue. All right.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
This is just one of them. Can you see that? They want you to continue. So,
are there any
so let's go
specific
on.
questions or documents that you want me to focus in on, maybe based on the comments, or I can just pick?
I'm a little bit interested in the home ties there because I've seen a whole bunch of people put all kinds of documents there. Sometimes you wonder whether this is really relevant or not. Which ones would you consider maybe a helpful home ties or proof of home ties document to add? And which one would you say probably might be on a lighter note and may just be excluded? You talk about the number of pages too, right? 50-page, 60-page proof of funds document. I don't know how many people can read through all of that, but again, that is why when you work with an expert like an immigration lawyer, which of course you guys are given for free, all right, I encourage those who can take advantage of this to actually do so. Imagine getting a free immigration lawyer giving you all this insight and professional guidance and helping you put the strongest application together. And we haven't even spent time talking about the legal aspect of the things she puts together. Maybe she'll reference some case studies out there justifying how you merit the visa and all of that. You probably may not be able to go on Canly to go look for legal cases and read them, but then you have all these lawyers who are working with Halp, and they know what unique cases will be applicable to your specific situation. All right, Erica, you can continue, please.
So home ties. So let's definitely focus on home ties. I think a really big one that I love to encourage applicants to think about. And I want to preface this too with making sure that, when you're preparing the application, accuracy and the making sure that everything you're including in your application is accurate, it's true, you're not including any forged documents or anything like that, because if that is detected by IRCC, it could result in a ban essentially from applying to Canada. Yeah. So it's very serious, so just keep that in mind. But one thing that is really helpful when we're kind of talking about home ties is employment. And so the reason that is really helpful is because it actually does two things. It ties you to your home country, but it also is that future element. So when we're talking about, the journey and why we want to come to Canada to study, and then tying it to what we've done so far or what our goals are, after our program is finished, career goals is a huge topic that you can, touch on. And so I kind of, it's a really strange part of the application, but when we're dealing with study permit application, as a lot of you know, there is a huge focus on what you're going to do after your program ends. And you really have to support the fact that you're going to leave Canada and you're going to go back to your home country and you are going to do something in your home country. The reality is that we have a post-graduation work permit that you can apply for and stay in Canada. And if permanent residency is your goal, that is okay. But when we're focusing on the application itself, it really is a temporary residency application. So we're focusing on returning back to your home country after the program ends. And so a really, really great way of showing that is saying that you have a job waiting for you when you come home that is tied to your program, that, is related to the skills and knowledge that you're going to gain from your program and then be able to bring back to your country and contribute. And for a lot of people too, like this is genuine, it might be that you work in a company, maybe your company is supporting your decision to go and study so that you can then come back and bring those skills and that knowledge to the company, get a promotion. Who knows what doors this could open up for you. So really focusing on that. It could be that you have a business venture, maybe like a personal, business goal that you're looking to expand or something like that. Beyond career goals, family, obviously huge. The more family you have in your country of, your country of residence and your country of citizenship, very, very important. Obviously, I know that with the spousal open work permit changes for a lot of people, it's been very scary and obviously not ideal. But on the flip side, I hate to make something positive out of leaving your family back home, but it does create proof of ties to your home country. It's something that you are leaving behind that is incredibly important to you and that, you are planning to return home to. Tangible assets is another big one. So that's, properties, physical properties. You're looking at homes, you're looking at cars, maybe any, if you have like rental properties, any investments, anything like that that's tying you to your country is very helpful. One common question that I get a lot is if let's say it's the candidate is younger, maybe they don't have, a property just yet or cars. So what you can also focus on too is your family's assets. And so you can focus on properties that are in your family that likely are properties that you might inherit one day. And so you can have sworn affidavits and documents that are included that are a little bit not legally binding, but just they're, from a legal standpoint, they tend to have a little bit more sway, I guess, when the agent is looking at the application and, having some kind of a letter confirming that this property is going to be yours one day. I feel like I am missing something. I've talked about family, assets, career, anything else that I might be missing here?
Yeah, I think you've covered all of that.
Okay.
And the prospects of your course of study and why you chose to study in Canada is also an area that I see students focus on. And then, of course, if there is any disclosure from a previous maybe refusal, or maybe in other countries, or maybe in Canada, that's also something that a lot of people may fall into. Some people may not disclose it and others may find out, but I know the recommendation from you will likely be that a full disclosure, unless you get slapped with a misrepresentation, depending on the severity of it, right? Is that an area you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people don't know that the government of Canada shares information with other countries. And so, and to be honest, and this is definitely done on purpose, but we don't know exactly the scope of the information that's shared, who it's shared between. This is kept very under wraps and on purpose because it would give us an unfair advantage, but no, but that's not to say that we shouldn't include it if we think that they're not going to know about it. You should always include it. Always best to err on the side of caution. When creating these applications and submitting the applications, you want to start this journey off on the right foot and keeping in mind that it's a journey. And so this, for many people, as I touched on at the beginning, this is step 1, but step, 3 might be permanent residency. And so you really want to start on the right foot and make sure that all of the information that you are providing now is accurate. And that's also incredibly important to remember because everything that you submit to IRCC, you are creating a paper trail. There is a record now with IRCC. You have a file. And so as part of a study permit application, the documents that you're required to provide are going to be different than the documents that you're going to have to provide down the road if you want to apply for a work permit or if you want to apply for permanent residency. And so I always, for clients that I'm working on that, let's say I'm working on a permanent residency application with them, but they had previously submitted a study permit application or something previously that I didn't work on with them, I always ask them to send me their forms, to send me their documents, and I want to take the time to look, because accuracy and consistency is so important when it comes to IRCC, and you just want to avoid any potential red flags that could be raised by your application. And so the best way to do that is to be honest, because if you're not hiding anything, then there's nothing that you have to change moving forward. And honesty is
Erica, sorry for the interruption. If you can go back about 5 6 seconds ago, accuracy and consistency, I think that is where the connection is.
I was just saying that, if you submitted a previous application, that you really want to make sure that everything in a future application is consistent with that previous application to avoid any potential red flags. And I think, it's an old saying, it might be cliche, but really honesty is the best policy when it comes to immigration.
All right. So you guys know we could actually cover a lot more just on the immigration side of the visa application. That is why you want to be on the Halp team and Erica's team as well, because these guys are here to work for you, for your interest, to make sure you succeed. All right. All right. Some of you are wondering, how can I get access to Erica? How can I work with them? Well, you got to sign up through Halp. If you're eligible, if you meet the eligibility criteria there, they're not charging you a fee for this. It's all free. Just imagine you're getting all of this for free, all right? And unless our head team here, they are there to also walk you every stage of the decision making, choosing your program, choosing the school, the province, the reasoning behind your choice, and all of that. You can unlock all of this by signing up using the links in the description box of this video. If you're already in Canada and you're looking for a second program to study and you're not sure which school, how to get in there, please use the link for those who are already in Canada, and somebody will help you. If you want to even extend your study permit because it's about expiring and stuff like that, you still have status, the legal team here will help you to do that once you go through the Halp verification process. And I want to encourage you, share this video with your friends, put them in your groups on social media, wherever, and let your friends learn from this. You may have heard a rumor that Canada's immigration may share information with other countries, so other countries do share information with Canada. You got a bit of it in this video, isn't it? So if you're not sure, just know that it is very important to be transparent when you're putting your application. You never know what you can see. The big guys up there, right? He can see a whole bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? So you want to be careful knowing. The rumor I've heard is that Canada shares with the US, which makes sense because we are neighbors, right? And a few other countries, maybe Australia, New Zealand, a few other. I'm not too sure about that, but hey, you want to make sure that you're using the right people who are giving you the right advice or information on what you do and how to put your things together. Even if you have passed refusal, it's not the end of the road. There is a way to look at it from a legal immigration point using the IRCC's own provisions in the Immigration Act to help you overcome some of those previous refusals. I've seen a ton of people who have had first, second, third refusals, and they were successful at some point just because they were able to learn of how the process and the packaging goes together. Talking about visa refusals, the top visa refusal that I've seen all kinds of reasons, incomplete documentation, people not being familiar with local country immigration requirements. That brings me to my next question to you. So even though we've talked about the general requirements or the primary requirements, sometimes there are some local requirements specific to a particular country. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you want to just advise people. I'm pretty sure this is an area you're more familiar with depending on where the person is applying from. Is that something you want to just draw people's attention to, Erica?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important. Thank you for bringing that up. A lot of people don't know that there's, IRCC has published study permit guidelines that require documents that apply to all applicants. But exactly as you said, there's also, they're called visa office instructions. And so every visa office has their own set of instructions. And so, for instance, some countries might require a police certificate. Some may not. Some might require language test results. Some may not. And so you really, really need to figure out what your specific requirements are and make sure that you're meeting them. There also might be, there's some visa offices that require their own forms to be filled out or like questionnaires. So you need to make sure that you do that and include it as part of your application. And as you said, it is based on where you're applying from. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at the requirements. And also, to touch on that point too, I would say that in terms of visa refusals, one that I often see is kind of, tying back to the, ties to your home country. But when we're talking about the location that you're applying from, it is very, very important that you really are mindful of that, because when we're thinking about proving to IRCC that you're going to return back to your home country, if you're applying from somewhere that isn't your home country, that in and of itself is likely going to raise some red flags. And so, you always have to have legal status where you're applying from, but making sure that you have ties to that location is also very, very important as well.
Okay. Now, my question to you, you can feel free to answer this or not to answer this. If you can give me your memory of a badly put together visa application that was denied, and you saw it, you had to work through it and help somebody at the point, how bad was it? And what was the missing documents there that I know this is client confidential information and stuff like that, but if you can just touch on how a weird or badly put application looks like, so that people can just take something away from this.
Yeah, no, there's been quite a few, unfortunately, so it's hard to, to
It's
think
cracking
about,
you up already, I can imagine. Huh?
But I'll just say, that the longer it takes me to, go through the application, weed through it, pick out what's needed, what's not needed, that likely is a good indicator, of how much work needs to be done to fix it. But I think too, that like I always, again, like put myself in the officers or the agent's shoes that's going to be reviewing the application. And I'm thinking, if I'm having this hard of a time, going through it, I can't even imagine, how hard of a time they had, especially considering all of the other applications that they have to review on that same day. So yeah, I think organization is just the key, including everything in one giant PDF document with no, table of contents, no organization whatsoever, but also including a lot of irrelevant documents and then missing documents that are required. That's also something that I see a lot. And then another thing too is, when we're talking about the requirements, that's not to say that you can't go above and beyond the requirements. There might be cases, where you could include something else that isn't necessarily included in the list of requirements, but for your specific case, it might be helpful to include. But that's where professional help can really come into play, because, we can look at your case and we can say that, like, there's a little bit of a weak point here. What can we include to strengthen this element of your application? But also vice versa. You don't want to include documents that are not required that are going to hurt your case, because now you're going above and beyond the requirements, but for the wrong reasons. And so just be very, very mindful and careful about what you include, what you don't include, making sure you meet the requirements, making sure that you are honest, transparent, everything is accurate. But just looking at the application as a whole and assessing what is the what is the overall image that we are, portraying as part of this application, and what is the message that we're sending, and is it going to be, an application that's going to increase our chances of being successful at the end of the day.
All right, missing documents, poorly organized documentation, and all of that. You had it, and a whole bunch of different reasons could account for a visa refusal. Earlier this year, Canada announced levels to the immigration program at the student level and other areas as well. And this, we've seen a further reduction. The impression we got at the beginning of the year is that if we reach the cap for the year and students submit an application, or maybe they don't have their PAL included, but they're supposed to include a PAL or provincial attestation letter, we will not process the application. We will return it to them. Now, my question is this. I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, Choco, we've seen a lot of visa refusals. Is Canada still processing visas by chance, or have they stopped for the year? How does a student know that they said they are going to bring in maybe say 10,000 people for this year? They've already reached it. So don't submit your application. It's a waste of time for the year. It's already done. Is there a way students can know when the cap has been reached for the year and when not to submit application? Is there a way?
I know, I think it's a great question. And it's also a question that a lot of professionals, are really grappling with, because when we have, a pipeline of clients that want to work with us, we also have to be very careful to not start working, with an applicant or a prospective applicant if we're going to be devoting time and energy towards preparing an application that can't be submitted, so it's definitely a cause for concern for us as well. But I think time will tell, and I hate giving that answer, but there are other examples of programs that we see that have a cap. And so typically what happens is if you go onto the IRCC website and you look at the page for that program, there's usually in big red writing, at the top, basically saying that the cap has been reached and, the program is closed and they're currently not accepting applications. We don't know if that's exactly what it's going to look like. I imagine that, because with study permits specifically, there is a lot of flexibility and leeway that they're likely going to give themselves, because just because an application has been submitted doesn't mean that it's going to be approved, which doesn't mean that the cap is necessarily going to be reached. So, when exactly that notification is going to come out, if a notification comes out at all, we will have to wait and see. But, of course, the moment that we receive more information, we will let you know. And so just again, keep stay on top of all the changes, but just go to the right sources to find, information about those changes.
I appreciate that, Erica. And I got one more question for you, so just hang in there with me. It's been a long one for you today. I will come back to you to look at the legal options available to students who feel that they probably have a strong case or a strong application but have been refused. Are there legal options for them to take aside from just submitting a new application altogether? What are the options? Could there be a reconsideration or maybe a judicial review process and all of that? If you can just get ready for me there, I'll come back. I want to get back to Alessa just to make sure she doesn't feel left behind in the whole conversation.
I don't feel left behind. Don't worry.
Good. Alessa, so let's talk about the programs that with your team working with schools and colleges and universities here. You're monitoring the trends here. They are focusing on specific programs now. They're looking at the pathway for transitioning to the Canadian workforce to help Canada with the post-COVID rebuild and all of that. What programs would they recommend for people who are looking at the January intake, whether they are already in Canada with a study permit and are looking to switch their programs, or they are just looking to go into a second program because they just finished a first year and a first program and they want maybe a second one to maximize their postgraduate work permit? Or maybe for somebody who is not yet in Canada, don't have a study permit yet, they are overseas and they are looking to study in Canada. Which programs? If you have a list of them, you can just run us through some of them. Okay.
Yeah, that is a great question. And what I want to kind of preface first is that with these IRCC changes coming down the pipeline, there are PGWP updates. Again, just reiterating that. So if you are looking at a college program, your PGWP eligibility will be based off of whether your program aligns with a labor shortage identified by the federal and provincial governments. All of that being said, like Erica alluded to earlier on in the webinar, in this live, there are a lot of kind of industries that we know as people living in Canada and seeing the economy, we know that do have big labor shortages. So kind of high level, those ones are healthcare, construction, trades, and technology. That's like a huge umbrella of a lot of different programs. So again, to reiterate, although it seems scary and these new updates are kind of talking about limitations to PGWP, there's still a lot of programs available that will help fill those labor shortages. And bachelor's and master's programs at universities currently aren't affected. What I want to say there is a lot of programs that students, a lot of times when these kind of changes happen, students get panicked and they want to immediately switch from a business program that they might be in over to a program that might fall under the labor shortage. Or if you're back home, maybe you have a bachelor's degree in business or psychology or something like that, and now you want to come and do a master's or a postgraduate diploma that's going to fall under those labor shortages. Although all these changes are happening, the big thing to remember is to stay in the education pathway that makes the most sense to you and your previous education. So a big thing we saw with earlier this year when the government implemented the cap was students immediately wanted to go to a master's program. The idea here was kind of like, it's not under the cap, I won't be affected. Master's programs are now coming in under the cap. So what students need to remember is that your education pathway has to make sense in terms of your goals, but also in terms of what the IRCC is looking for. And that's kind of the most important thing, because a lot of students who are now panicking will think that they can easily switch and it won't impact their kind of immigration, it won't impact their study permit, but there are more kind of changes to come. And we want to make sure that we're not making any kind of sudden changes for things that might not be as kind of scary as they seem. That was kind of my precursor. Like we said, great programs that we know will in some way, shape, or form fall under the labor shortages are kind of healthcare, technology, construction, the skilled trades, to name some. If I went through a list of all of those programs, we would be here for hours. What I do know is I have been speaking to a lot of our partners, and a lot of them do have programs that either aren't going to be affected by these PGWP changes, or have programs that will align with the labor shortages. So universities and colleges like the University of Niagara Falls, Canada, Niagara University, Thompson Rivers University, International Business University, Sheridan College has a great trades program that we know will fall under the labor shortages. So I can't sit here and like list all of the programs, but what I'm trying to say is that all of our partners still have programs that, whether are affected by PGWP or not, will fall under the labor shortages and will still set students up for success with their PGWP and working in Canada, or getting an amazing education in Canada and bringing it back to their home country to kind of improve and support the economies back home.
Thank you. I think it's also important to mention that the recent update also for postgraduate work permit kind of just affects the master's program a little bit. Previously, with a 1 year at the beginning of the year, the impression we got was that a 1 year master's was leading to a 3 years postgraduate work permit. But with a recent update, it looks like you need to have a program that is either 16 months or more at a master's level to be eligible for a 3 years postgraduate work permit. That could pretty much make the 2 year programs more popular now at a master's level. Is that what you also think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to kind of speculate too much on the changes to PGWP and the master's length, because those haven't quite been confirmed yet from the IRCC. However, what we do know is the longer you're in your program, the more Canadian education that you're going to receive. And therefore, in the eyes of the IRCC, that's like an educated student from a Canadian education, whether they're international or domestic. And so they should have a longer period of time to be able to find that job in the workforce, like Erica talked about. The big thing that I also want to reiterate is that master's programs are great. The 1 year programs are amazing. 2 year programs are also amazing. But sometimes the way you can think about it is, again, the longer you're in school, the longer you're learning with other international students with different experiences, with domestic students who grew up in Canada that have knowledge about the Canadian culture and economy and all of those things. If you think about it, the longer you're in your classroom, the more you're learning, the more you have time to practice your English, which will then help you with your English proficiency tests when you go to apply for your PGWP and PR. So I know that for a lot of students, sometimes the way they think about it is like, oh, the shorter the program, the earlier I can enter kind of the workforce and work in Canada. But it's hard for international students to get jobs in Canada right now. It's also hard for domestic and Canadian citizens to get jobs. And what's really going to set you apart is doing that 2 year master's program, like being as educated as you possibly can be. So I will leave it to Erica if she has any more insights on the changes to the PGWP and the 1 to 2 year master's programs. But really the way you can kind of think about it is the longer you're in the classroom, kind of the better it's going to be for you in the long run.
Okay, I'd like to touch a little bit on the master's program there, especially for business programs. I think the kind of business programs are getting a lot of flag recently, just because we know the college mills out there that churn out these programs that are completely disconnected from the labor market. And people are studying courses, and when they graduate, they're ending up as Uber drivers and flipping burgers, and they fall into a low end of the knock code or the tier, and they don't know how to navigate their permanent residence journey and all of that. I think some master's programs are still pretty much, even though they are business programs, they are pretty much in high demand or have a better prospect in terms of leading to management jobs. So I've seen people do MBA and then they get really good jobs with great knock codes, like maybe knock 0. All right. Some of them also end up in knock 1 and stuff like that, or tier 0 and then tier 1. So it is still an interesting area, especially at the master's level. So when you mentioned earlier that the master's area for PGWP and the bachelor's may not be heavily impacted at that level, I thought that the kind of programs you study, especially if it's business, could also play a role there. That is just my opinion there. Let me get back to Erica. I know we want to talk about the legal options for students who've been refused their visas, but if there's anything you'd like to add to the conversation we've been having so far.
I think Alexa said it, so well, which is that it's really, we really want to be careful not to speculate, too much, because there's still, a lot of information coming out. And so, but I think everything, she said was beautifully said. And I honestly don't have much to add. I think that we're still learning, we're still getting information, but I really like how you put it. Don't necessarily change yourself, change your path, based on what you're seeing, because these changes there's going to be more changes. We don't know, what's going to happen in the future. And so, be wary of that, and make sure that whatever changes you make, you're going to be happy at the end of the day, with those changes.
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, first time here, you're welcome. This is Choco Millionaire, and I'm here with an immigration lawyer, Erica Herman, and Alessa. We'll be discussing the recent changes to Canada's immigration program and different aspects that you can use to pivot and probably make a smarter decision using the right experts and the resources that are available to you. And Halp is here to walk you down that journey. And Erica and her team here are also here to help you. Remember, with Halp, you're paying no service fee to Halp. You're only paying the legal fees to your schools, your tuition, and your own proof of funds and other expenses. So it's all free. So feel free to unlock this by clicking on the link in the description box. And then if you are an overseas student, click on the link for those who are overseas, who are coming to Canada to study. And the guys at Halp will take a look at your profile. And if it's one that is actually approved, you will get somebody reaching out to you via email and WhatsApp, and it will start your process. And within days, you could probably be getting your admission to start. If you're already in Canada looking to switch your program as well, please feel free to use the link for those who are already in Canada. And when you sign up, somebody from Halp will reach out to you on WhatsApp or via email, and they will assess your options out there for you. Erica, legal options for somebody who's been refused, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe third time, they want to give up. Some don't want to give up. I've seen a lot of people taking the government on, going to court and challenging decisions there and all of that. What options do you typically see out there for people who have been refused and they think they have a strong profile or a case?
Yeah, no, I think options, is a great way to put it, because there really are here. And so, but it's also very, very case by case. And you really want to speak with somebody and determine what the best path is for you, but to act quickly. And I will get to that, in a moment. But in terms of what you can do and strategies that you can take, a very common, and I'd say likely the simplest, path is just to reapply. But I wouldn't say just reapply. I would reapply with, knowledge and an understanding of the reasons why your application was refused and what you can do to then improve improve your reapplication and strengthen your chances of getting, the outcome that you were hoping for the first time or the second time around. And one way that you can gain more insight into the reasons for the refusal of your application is to request something called GCMS notes. And I will be completely honest with you. Sometimes these notes are great. They have a lot of information. They have a detailed overview of the reasons that really, went into this decision. Sometimes they're not as helpful, and they look pretty identical to the refusal letter that you received, which is usually a 1 or 2 sentence, reason for the refusal, typically very, very broad and not necessarily giving you all of the information that you need to then strengthen your application. I think, though, that a lot of people get discouraged by that when it comes to, the broad reasons. I actually sometimes view it as a blessing in disguise in a way, because if there are not, detailed reasons, it could be just that there were really no reasons, for the refusal. And I do see that a lot. Obviously I want to be careful, with that. It's a very difficult job, making decisions and assessing all of these applications that are submitted. But mistakes happen. We're human beings at the end of the day reviewing the application, and sometimes a document might be overlooked, or, something could be read wrong, and then, the decision is made, and it is not necessarily an accurate representation of what you were trying to say in your application. So if you feel that it could be a quick, easy fix and you just want to reapply and, hope for the best the second time around, that option is definitely available to you. The one thing I would say with that, though, is that it's great and it's easy to do that, but there is going to be a refusal on your record. And so some people like to avoid that because, when we're applying for applications in the future, obviously it would be ideal to not, have to explain any previous refusals. And so 2 ways that you can go about getting this, I guess, appealing the decision or trying to challenge the decision, but also eliminating the refusal on your record is there's 2 possible routes for this. So one of them is just to apply for something called reconsideration. And there's no formal process here. It's really just sending an email or a web form to the visa office explaining why you feel that an error might have been made when, they were assessing your application, and asking them to reconsider the decision. The problem with this route is that because it is more of an informal pathway, it can take many months to hear back, if at all. So, I actually very recently just, had a case where I have had, some success in the past with reconsideration, but I've also had cases where we just don't hear back. And so we don't know, and so there's this sense of feeling stuck where you're like, should I wait, to hear back? Maybe they will reconsider the decision, or should I just go ahead and resubmit my application and just assume that we might not be hearing back? So that's the risk that you take with that option. But, it is free, which is great because you're just really just sending an email or, a web form and requesting the reconsideration. The third option is, I'd say, a last resort option, and that is judicial review. So for those who are not familiar with, the judicial review process, it is actually a formal legal process that involves the court system. So it's the federal court, and you are appealing or challenging the decision, and you are asking the court to basically take the decision and not change the decision, but you're asking it to get sent back to be redecided by a different visa officer. That is very important to keep in mind. There is a lot of people out there who unfortunately believe that if the decision is appealed, if it is overruled, that it's just the refusal is turned into an approval, but that's not how it works. What happens is that it actually gets sent back to be redecided. So it could get sent back and it could be refused again. So there's no guarantee that it will necessarily lead to an approval. But in best case, it gets sent back, it's approved. So now you don't have a refusal and you have the approval, which is what you initially wanted. One thing I would say too with judicial review is that it can be a very, very lengthy and expensive process. If you look, online, a lot of law firms are very transparent with the fees that they charge for this process, it can be tens of thousands of dollars at times. Like, it's very, very expensive. And it could also take like 14 to 18 months of your life, that you're wrapped into this process. That said, I did want to mention that 2 days ago, the government announced a pilot project. A pilot program. And so I'm not sure if you are all familiar with this, but we did, have an idea that this might be coming. And so I was really excited to see that they have, announced it. But what this could do, and it's specifically for study permit applications, is it could basically cut the process down like by more than half. So they're saying that the process could be done in around 5 months, which would be incredible. And what it's doing too is it's taking two really big stages in the process and merging it into one. And so normally you have to first apply for leave to even be considered by the court to make your arguments and say why you feel the application should be returned to be redecided. Now they're merging that. So the application for leave and the decision, it's just one part. And they're also eliminating the need to go to court. It's all going to be written submissions. So there's a lot of, ways that they're making this more accessible to people, which is great. But they're also streamlining the process, because I want to read you a crazy statistic that I read. IRCC is expecting to receive 24,000 immigration filings by the end of December for study permit applications. That's a lot. So they had to preemptively put some program in place to be able to deal with the volume and to make sure that all of the cases get the attention that they deserve. Another thing to note too is that when it comes to judicial review, there is an opportunity to settle the case as well. So this is kind of outside of the pilot program. A lot of cases don't actually end up in court. They get settled far earlier. So that 14 to 18 month, timeline might be a lot shorter if your case gets settled. So I've thrown a lot of legal jumbo at you here. So let me know if you want me to break anything down further.
Yeah, I'm excited that you talked about the update there with the judicial review process. I read about it, so I was excited to hear what you say about it. I'm happy that you brought it up. And guys, don't you love this conversation? This is my first time getting an immigration lawyer live, spending time with me without me paying for almost 2 hours. We're getting all of that for free today because Halp made this possible. So the guys at Halp and Erica, I want to appreciate you guys for making the time for it. I know lawyers are expensive, so I'm really appreciative for every minute that you spend with us here. Now, you guys, especially Alessa, you guys at Halp, you could be vacationing somewhere, especially now that it's getting cold, but you decided to dedicate your life helping students to make their journey easy, coming to Canada, and you've helped hundreds and thousands of people. If I am a first-time person watching this video today, and I'm a little bit skeptical about using folks like you guys, I'm just wondering, what would you say to me as a new person watching first time, convincing me as to why I should use you guys at Halp, Erica's Immigration Services through Halp for free, and why should I use you guys instead of the agents, the ghost agents that I'm more comfortable with because they speak my language, they live in my country, some of them probably even live in Canada, and they are all ghost agents under the radar. Why should I use you guys when it's free instead of using somebody that I can pay who probably may not have the same license to do what you guys do?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. And I've touched on it a little bit, but I think the biggest thing that we at Halp bring to the table that a lot of other agents don't is our transparency with our students. So yes, sometimes something being free it's almost like this is too good to be true. How does it work? But the reason that we're free is because we truly wholeheartedly believe that students should only be using their hard-earned money for their education process, not to get there. And the reason that we are so transparent with our students and sometimes have to let students know that maybe they don't quite meet the requirements right now is because we know how hard people work to be able to afford to come to Canada or go somewhere else in the world to study. And we don't believe that you should be spending any money on your study abroad process unless it's towards tuition, living expenses, IRCC applications. Like, you just shouldn't be spending your money on anything else but once you get there. And the other thing is that unfortunately, a lot of the times you have to pay for application fees, you have to pay for your visa immigration fees, and even hundreds of dollars can set people back. And that isn't refundable for students. So students pay these other agents thousands of dollars to get to the visa stage and then don't get their visa approval. And now they're out all of this money and they can't come to Canada. And sometimes it seems like it was all for nothing. So that's why we're free. Really, why you should trust us is I know we're not on the ground in your country with you, but it's because we're on the ground here in Canada with the people that you're trying to get to. And so my coaching team, the experts here at Halp, we are trained by industry experts all over Canada, industry experts in your home country, but we're on the ground in Canada. So when crazy changes like this happen, we can go directly to the source and get the information that is the most accurate and will help students get to where they need to go. The second piece is a lot of our partners are in kind of the Ontario area, but they're also all over Canada. Being in Canada just allows us to visit them or them to visit us and us to have a lot closer relationships and being able to go to campus and say, you know what, I know you're really worried about this experience and you're traveling so far all the way from Nigeria or Ghana or wherever you're coming from to come to Canada and you've never been to this campus, you've never seen it. I've called my students sitting in the registrar's office on a campus before. And that's really what's important to us, is being connected with our students through technology, which is great, but being so close to our partners and Immigrations, Refugee Citizenship Canada to be able to provide the most accurate and up-to-date information to all of our students. And the last piece that I'll say is we are a tech company. So we do use a lot of technology and we've built out a lot of technology to make the process easier. And humans do make mistakes sometimes. Even our coaches make mistakes sometimes, but our technology allows those mistakes to happen way less often. And our really close partnerships with our universities allow for when those mistakes do happen, for them to be super quickly rectified and not impact the student at all.
Great, beautiful. Don't you guys love the transparency from these two experts that I have here? And that's what you get. They're not going to sugarcoat anything to you. They are ready to serve you. They are ready to work for you, for your interest, for you to succeed. And it doesn't stop when you enter Canada. Even when you finish school, these guys are there to help you with your journey on your postgraduate journey as well. How do you apply all of that? If you're wondering how to sign up with Halp, look in the description box of this video. I've included the links in there. Also, keep an eye on the comment section. The links have also been provided in the comment section. Feel free to click on the link to sign up if you're already in Canada. Choose apply from Canada or already in Canada option, and then sign up and somebody will reach out to you. If you are not in Canada and you don't have a study permit or you don't have a visa here, you can still apply and leave the eligibility requirement or verification for the guys at Halp. They will reach out to you. What if you don't get through or you get that negative response that unfortunately Halp is not able to work with you? Is that a judgment on you by Halp? Definitely not. Halp will not be able to work with all of you as much as they would love to. They may not be able to work with some of you, and it's not in any way to say that you're not good enough to come to Canada. You may still be able to explore other options out there. So feel free to go ahead. Just make sure you do not pay money to folks who may promise you things that are unrealistic and will leave you emotionally distraught in different ways. So please just keep that one there. All right. I like to come back to you guys for your final words. We've talked a lot. We've talked about Canada. We've talked about what seems to be a gloomy period in our immigration on a calendar. And we've also talked about the bright lights, the areas that we can also draw inspiration and then be more prepared and then enjoy the bright days ahead. What are your final words to everybody watching? Let me start with Erica. Final words.
Oh, I have a lot of final words. It's hard to choose.
I'll be happy to hear them.
I would say, don't lose hope. I think that, with all of these changes, as I said at the beginning, it can be scary and it can feel lonely, and just know that you're not alone. There's professionals in Canada who also, you know, have questions, and that's okay. And we're all working together to figure it out. But at the end of the day, all of this, like Canada itself, the country is not changing. It's still here. It's still a wonderful place to come, to live, to learn, to work. And I think that it's really important that we don't lose sight of that. And to also remember that, you know, the government, as much as it might seem like they're this big bad wolf sometimes, a lot of, you know, the changes are really in all of our best interests at the end of the day, and they're very carefully well thought out. And so just please don't lose hope, and seek out help. Come, you know, work with us and let us help you get to where you want to be, and come join us in Canada.
Thank you, Erica, for those inspiring final words. Alessa.
Yes, I'm going to keep it short and brief because I do have to go right at 2 p.m. But honestly, Erica put it very, very well. A lot of these changes can sound scary, but they're actually going to make Canada and our study permit pathway a lot stronger. So keep an open mind. Be careful on who you're listening to. Make sure you're listening to the experts, and don't make any rash decisions. More information will come out, but stay optimistic. Canada is still a great place to come, and it will continue being a great place to study. And we over here at Halp can't wait to help you get there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today. My final words to you. This is my public service to you. We make time to bring you experts like this and resource persons to help make your journey easy. Some of you wish you could get in touch with me in different ways, or probably wish that I could also help you at some stage with your application, but I'm not able to. But thankfully, we have all the guys out there, the great resource persons, to bring you for free, and you're not paying for it. Imagine getting an immigration lawyer, walk you through that journey, every step of it, to submit a strong application, even when things don't go your way, helping you to still reapply and face tomorrow stronger. Imagine the experts at Halp, you know, connecting with the partner institutions out there and making this easy for you, because they understand the programs that are in high demand and all the changes that are working. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button, drop your comments, and consider subscribing. And let me know if you'd like to see Alessa and Erica and the entire team they work with here again. And I will do my best to get them back on here. From myself and Erica and Alessa and everybody I have, we love you guys, and we'll see you another time. Take care. Peace.
Thanks, Jorkor. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.